Hello, I am Jimmy Elizondo from Real Wealth Ranching, where our goal is to maximize our clients' profitability to the maximum and while increasing your land the fastest. Today, we have Ryan Boyd from Manitoba, Canada, who is here with us, and he's going to introduce himself, and I'm going to ask him to tell us a bit about his farm operation and the unique challenges and environment he has. Ryan?
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, as you mentioned, we farm here north of Brandon, Manitoba. Up in Canada, we're about 70 miles north of the U.S.-Canada border. We can grow a lot of grass in a short period of time here. Our rainfall is 10 to 20 inches. I think average is about 15 inches of rain precipitation per year. We're froze up for 6 months of the year at times, 4 to 6 months where the ground is frozen, like there literally is no growth. We can get fairly harsh winters at times with snow and cold. I guess that's a bit of a challenge, but it also presents opportunity in that our grasses can be preserved in that frozen environment to allow higher quality stockpile. I guess the biggest challenge is utilizing that extremely rapid, high quality growth in the summer season when it does grow the days are long and growth is rapid. So we've been working at this grazing deal on our farm for about 15, 20 years now. We converted our farm. It's arable land. Like we can grow crops on it. It's decent farmland, inherently high organic matter. We're working with about 5% organic matter soils, but we can see a lot of opportunity to improve that with these better grazing management with the Total Grazing.
Great. That's good to know. How many years have you been doing total grazing versus selective grazing? How many years on each one?
Well, so I had the good fortune to visit you there. It was about a year ago now, I guess, in February down in Florida, and I've taken the course or read about what Johann Zietzman and what you've been talking about for years, Jim, and we kind of dabbled in it a couple of years ago, and we didn't understand it totally, so we went back to kind of selectively, rotationally grazing. So we've been rotationally grazing for 15 years now. So it was really just 1 year. It's been about 1 year since we really started total grazing, and it took seeing it, witnessing it in person at your experienced ranch there to really, for the light bulbs to go on and really show us the potential. So when we came home and we started into the total grazing, we were totally believers after trying it for one summer. So we would never switch back now. We still have a lot to learn, but it's so much potential there with the total grazing.
I remember you visited me on February of 2020, and then you left on a scholarship, a Nuffield scholarship, to visit other parts of the world to learn about their grazing methods.
That's right. Yeah, it was the front end of my personal study. So I was on the road for about 6 weeks there after I visited with you, and I saw all kinds of different grazing operations in different. I was in Australia. I was in the UK. I've been in New Zealand, South America, and Brazil, and yeah, it seems like the people everywhere are still in the old paradigm that photosynthetic regrowth recovery is based from the photosynthetic capacity that we leave by top grazing, but as any practitioner knows that watches animals graze, you can't teach an animal to graze evenly unless you're consuming high percentages of the material that is there. So as I traveled the world, I didn't visit with too many other grazing experts that, in my mind, had as much figured out as you did there in Florida, Jim. So it was an enlightening experience being down at your place there last February, for sure.
Thank you. I had moved since now I'm in Tallahassee, but we're doing the same here. I started in June of last year, and now we have taken great strides towards regenerating this and increasing the stocking rate and lowering cost and all that. But what interests me is that you travel and you look at different options, and you decided on this one, and then you did it. You came back, let's say in April, maybe.
That's right. Yeah, I came home. It was the end of March when I came home, when the world kind of shut down there with the COVID, with the pandemic. But yeah, so we came home and we started this Total Grazing as soon as we started grazing in April there. So, and it's been a game changer ever since we started that.
You're like on a mission to improve your stocking rate, your humus content, your productivity, and what you're going to leave behind in your land.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've been a firm believer for a long time that we need more animals, particularly grazing ruminants, in our farming systems, and that there is no better way to build soil, improve the soil, create a more resilient, low risk farming system than in a grazing program. What was eluding me though was the profitability, especially on this land it can produce the quality feed and abundant feed. And the Total Grazing kind of has allowed us the paradigm shift to capitalize on that forage growth, and an effective means to turn that productivity into a cash flow producing deal when we can graze it with the animals, produce the calves, the weight gain at a significant stocking rate that is meaningful, and all of that while rapidly improving the landscape, the soil.
So you started in late March, and after 13, 14 years of selective grazing, what are the results with Total Grazing versus that?
Well,
in carrying capacity, how much did you increase your carrying capacity?
Yeah, so we were coming off of two kind of dry years. So in 2019, we averaged like 50 to 60 animal unit days per acre. That's how we kind of measure how much grazing we're taking. And so immediately upon implementing the Total Grazing, we were seeing numbers of 100 animal unit days per acre, and we reached as high as 200 on some of our fields last summer. And that was basically doing it from an inexperienced state, like starting from square one. Yeah, we had a lot of help from yourself, and that was great. But now that we've been through a season and we know where the opportunity is, what we can do differently, yeah, we're easily going to double, triple, potentially more than what we were doing just 2-3 years ago with kind of a selective rotational grazing type deal.
My experience is that as your soil humus improves, because humus is not organic matter, it's a stable fraction of organic matter that cannot be degraded further, and that is a powerhouse to release not only moisture, but all the nutrients to your plants, slowly released. And that's the best way to feed them, and for your animal and for ourselves that feed that consume those animals. So once your humus starts to increase year by year, you're going to notice wider leaves, bigger leaves, faster regrowth, as if you were irrigating, and your quality will go way up. And that means more cattle, even more cattle, because they will get fat if you don't add more. And if you don't add more cattle, the land can go backwards. That's my experience. Okay, so you can see you can go to 2 or 3 times now with what you have. And in the future, I believe it will improve more. That's my take. What would you tell people that are on the fence regarding enrolling in the Total Grazing online course?
Well, I'd say you run your numbers. Think about what a 2-time stocking rate could do for the profitability of your farm or ranch, whatever you want to refer to it, your grazing operation. Like the cost to enroll is negligible when you think about the potential returns that you will see when you do implement total grazing on your operation.
Yes, because when you do a total graze, you take leaves and stems. As we know, leaves produce energy through photosynthesis and stems consume energy through respiring. The difference between those two determines how much energy is available after respiring for production and to feed the microorganisms in the soil through the sugary root exudates. These microorganisms, once they get fat and are digested by many other microorganisms, are eventually converted into humus. But they need to be fat to produce more humus. And that's how we build humus, by having a high leaf to stem ratio. And the only way to have a high leaf to stem ratio at very high stocking rates is to do total grazing with stockpile, of course, which you have been using stockpile, right?
Yeah, and that's where we struggled initially last spring and early summer. We didn't have enough stockpile set aside for the early season growth. And so that's what our goal was last summer, was to set the farm up so that we've got over half of our acres that are almost at a full season stockpile. So there's significant biomass there. And yeah, we just started grazing some of this stockpile here today. The snow has finally melted enough that the grass is available to graze. And yeah, it makes a huge difference by having that stockpile there, balancing the quality of the feed. Because when we didn't have all the stockpile, we were having issues with excess protein and animal health concerns that presents by not having a balanced ration when you are forcing the animals to take everything in the total grazing fashion.
You were, before total grazing, you were selective rotational grazing, and that meant that you didn't have a stockpile in area, or you did have a stockpile in area?
We had a little bit of stockpiled area, but not nearly to the extent that we do now. So it might have only been stockpiled for the latter part of the summer, so really only a couple of months of our growing season. Whereas now we have land that basically stockpiled almost the entire growing season. So there's a massive volume of grass there, which is exactly what we need when we're trying to total graze.
Would that be 2 or 3 times more forage on the stockpile?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, yeah, like we're looking at, we'll know some numbers here better in the next couple of weeks or month. But we're probably looking at a stockpile of 200 animal unit days per acre, and we've never been that high before. And I attribute that to the way we grazed that early last summer with that total grazing, grazed it hard, and then just got away, left it, let it grow the balance of the season.
That's the way to do it. Remember the stockpile you saw in Florida with me that was giving us like 400 cow days.
Yeah. No, I remember that, and that I have a hard time putting that image out of my mind, because that it was standing in that field looking at that stockpile and running the numbers there with you, and that's kind of when the light bulb went on, and it was like, yeah, we have to do this at home. And funny thing, this summer when we did the first area where we did start doing the total grazing, the regrowth on that, it reminded me a lot of what we were seeing in Florida on your place. The leaves were high quality, really long, lush, just a dense mat of high quality forage. That's what the stockpile was, sitting there now waiting for us to graze this spring. So we're really looking forward to getting onto that stockpile.
This past January, I went there again, and our best stockpile paddock, the leaves that were when you weren't there were like this. Now they are like this. I don't know if it fits, but 16 inches.
Yeah.
Where Bahia grass leaves are normally 4 to 6 inches. So now it's much higher. As the humus increases, it will keep improving. So I'm amazed really. Under selective or top grazing, they teach to leave stockpile all around the farm and then graze it down in rotations. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, we've done that, and it was a wreck. It didn't work. Like, what we saw happening was, well, there was two things during the growing season, as we were trying to just graze, really taking the top bits and moving around the farm rapidly and trying to build that stockpile as the summer went. It painted us into a corner because we dry out here midsummer pretty generally. Like the midsummer to late summer, the moisture turns off and the growth really slows down. So what was happening was we'd be moving real fast, and then by the time we realized the growth was slowing down, we were already back to where we needed to graze what we had grazed, like, say, a month prior. Well, it hadn't fully recovered, and the pastures were regressing. And then the stockpile on the other end, if you try to graze subsequent grazings of the stockpile in the dormant season, well, all we end up doing is just trampling that into the ground, and the utilization rates are terrible. Cattle will perform okay, but the stocking rate was brutal. So we had to change what we were doing, or we weren't going to. The financially just was not working. We had to do something different, and that's, I think, the answer lies in the total grazing. And even during the midsummer, like we saw that this summer, where we did a bit of an experiment, a side by side. So one paddock we grazed at a lower density and just took about, I would say, maybe 20%. Well, all that happened was the cattle trampled most of that forage that was there, and we're talking a nice, thick, good amount of growth, but they trampled substantial amount. Yeah, it looked greener. There was a little bit more regrowth a little bit sooner. But when we go into those paddocks next summer, grazing side by side, total grazing to the selective top grazing, we're going to blow that out of the water in stock days per acre. Like, if you just compare those two paddocks, we'll probably be 4 times as high with the total grazing. Yeah, the performance might be a little bit better on that selective grazing, but it nowhere near makes up for the additional grazing that we get and the results of the future forage growth after the total grazing.
Yeah, you do your own numbers, so you know what determines profitability. I always say that is stocking rate. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Nice to know. Now, how high can you see your stocking rate to go in the future by also using crop residues for grazing in the winter?
Oh yeah, because typically we do feed for a short period of time in our winter where it's so cold and the snow gets, like, we can have 2-3 feet of snow. Like, it's not uncommon to have that much snow. So if we can use the crop residue for, let's say, 100 days, 120 days of the winter, I mean, that's we could easily add another 30% carrying capacity to our farm easily. But with grazing that kind of stuff with the dry cows, for sure.
I can see that you're going to become a world leader in having people, showing people what can be done in a difficult environment, because it does get cold. And once you work on your genetics, which I know you're doing it, it will only get better.
Yes. Well, and I thank you, Jaime, for showing us the way and kind of holding our hand as we move the right direction here.
No, it's quoted your merit, because most people do not take the first step, and you are on the 10th step. So you're running away with it. Thank you very much, and congratulations. And I hope everyone gets the hint here that it can be done even in Canada. And you should enroll in the Total Grazing online course, so you can learn not only how to do it, but you will get a Q&A session 8 times, and you will get a PDF. You will get a narrated online course that will be yours for life, so you can watch it as many times you want. And there will also be a private discussion forum. And we have 4 pillars. This is the first of the 4 pillars, total grazing, and then comes the one that is called adapted genetics selection guidelines. After that, we have two other pillars to form the four pillars that together form the basis for bringing harmony to your life, your land, and your livestock. Thank you very much, Ryan, and I hope to see you soon.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a nice day and a good start of the week. Goodbye.